talk more about this, I'm very pleased now to be joined on the programme by Patricia Durr. She's the CEO of the organisation Every Child Protected Against Trafficking. Thanks very much indeed for making the time to speak to us today on France 24. Just tell us, first of all, what was your reaction when you heard this news that dozens of children were going missing in this way while supposedly under the care of the government?
Thank you. So we and many other organisations across the UK have been very concerned about this practice for some time now. It's been going on since July 2021, and I guess we were very shocked at the evidence that the Observer has found over and reported on over the weekend. But it was an inevitable consequence, I think, of the current practice of accommodating children in this way. What should be happening to those children is that when they arrive in the UK, that they are very quickly referred to local authority children's social care, and that they would become looked after by the local authorities. But currently, and what was an emergency response, the Home Office said, has now become a sort of standardised practice here, and obviously with these awful consequences.
And we'll come on to the consequences in a minute, but just very briefly, I mean, there will be viewers here trying to understand why children who are claiming asylum in the UK are in hotels in the first place. I mean, can you explain to us what the government's policy on this is?
So, as I said, this began back in the summer of 2021. What was happening was that children were arriving on the Kent coast, and Kent County Council considered that they did not have the capacity to accommodate those children. So an emergency response was put into place to accommodate the children somewhere, otherwise they would have been remaining at Kent Intake Unit, which is a kind of Borders Agency run provision. But as I say, this has now continued. What should really be happening is those children should be taken into the care of the local authority in which they're found, and then moved on to other local authorities across the country, which would be able to accommodate them. We're just really concerned that there's no end in sight for this practice.
Indeed. So really, this is still happening. Do we know what happens to the children who have gone missing, who have quite possibly been kidnapped? Who's doing that? Where are they ending up?
So what we know is that as of October last year, there were 222 children across all of the hotels that had gone missing and not been found. What we know from this recent information is localised to the Brighton and Hove area, and as you said, there kind of remain over 70 children unaccounted for. Our concern about all of those children, I mean, any child going missing is a grave concern, but our concern about those children is that we don't really know what's happened to them. But the evidence from the Observer over the weekend is that there have been eyewitness accounts of children being taken, so abducted, by what is said to be criminal gangs. And obviously, as an anti-trafficking and children's rights organisation, we've been very concerned that children may have been trafficked into the country and then picked back up by their traffickers, but also that they are particularly vulnerable. These are unaccompanied children without parental care, who should be being looked after via children's social services here, and given the kind of care and provision that they need to feel safe, so that they don't go missing or return to people who are going to abuse and exploit them.
Do you blame the Home Office Ministry directly then for these kinds of scenes?
Yes, absolutely. Then this practice needs to stop. We understand that there are pressures, but this is a discriminatory practice against these children. Our domestic law here says that every child should be treated the same, and that means that they need to be looked after and cared for and protected under our child welfare legislation, which would enable them to have the services that they need, to have their needs assessed, to have an understanding of what trauma that these children have been through potentially, and therefore what the risks are to them, and then to make them as safe as we can.
Is it fair to say then that had these children not been asylum seekers, say they had been British children that were going missing on such large numbers, that there would be far more investigations going on? Do you think the police have been negligent in looking into these cases?
Well, I think what's very clear is that British children would not be being accommodated in this way outside of our child welfare legislation. Every child in need in a local authority area remains their responsibility. In terms of what that then gives those children if they become looked after within the local authority, is that there is then a sort of multi-agency, and as you say, involving police too, kind of a safeguarding response to them, which is hypersensitized to the fact that they are looked after children. And therefore, yes, I do believe that there would be more care and attention being paid to these children.
Patricia Durr from the organisation Every Child Protected Against Trafficking. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us today here on France 24.
Thank you.
In other world news, Turkey's president